I can only imagine how we got to this, but we thought probably the best thing to do right now is to go on the porch with a tennis racket and
hmm
a tennis ball
hmm
and see what it feels like. So I'm going to stand here and let you hit the ball until you hit me in the back. And we did that.
And we did that, and it hurts.
Yeah.
It's incredibly unpleasant. We were
How?
idiots. So, yeah. Can I give the other example?
Okay.
All right.
This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It is not a substitute for professional mental health advice, diagnosis, or therapy. Our full disclaimer can be found in the show notes. Enjoy the show.
Welcome, everyone, to the Man Up Together podcast. My name is Alex Peskin, and I'm here with my lifelong friend and co-host, Bobby Jacobs. Bobby, today we are a few days away from sending our eldest to camp for the first time.
Crazy.
Where we met.
Yep.
So today we're going to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. It's crazy to me to think that, first off, that I have a kid who's old enough to be at camp.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think that you're old enough to have children
that's weird.
that are at camp.
They are going 2-3 years younger than us
They are.
these days,
Yeah.
though.
Yeah,
Okay.
They keep on pushing that.
It's like a warm-up. It's only 5
Right.
nights this
Right.
time, not
Right.
4 weeks.
Yeah, I'm excited. Camp is really important to us, I'll say.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited for both of our girls. I know my daughter is super excited. Like, she's super excited to sleep on a top bunk.
Which is good because my daughter is very interested in the bottom bunk.
There we
so
go.
maybe they could just share. That would be good.
So yeah, I think they're gonna have a great time.
Nice.
It's gonna be pretty awesome.
Nice. So before that, though, also we got to the end of year stuff, end of school year, all of that, which meant we had recital season.
Oh boy.
And my daughters go to a very big dance theater.
Okay.
So that means that we were at 2 recitals 24 hours apart to watch their 4-minute dances each. And so
the recitals weren't 4 minutes, I bet.
that was nope, just the dance that we were there for 90 minutes each for was 4 minutes. So that was fun.
Yeah.
I did love it. It's so cool to watch them up there. But I think I was watching the other dances from a different lens this year.
Okay.
Because, and maybe this year, maybe I always do, but I was thinking about it more because of this thing that we're doing.
Yeah.
There are a handful of boys who dance in all different age groups in the dance theater that they're a part of. And I was finding myself focusing on them and thinking about, I wonder what this is like.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to talk about that a little bit.
So I would say, from my experience, dance wasn't an option in my life, right? And I don't know that I knew any of my male friends growing up that did dance. It's really funny you brought this up. I took my daughter with me on a work trip this past weekend. We went to Texas together, and we were talking because we were watching The Mighty Ducks. It's one of her favorite movies recently. And what she noticed in The Mighty Ducks was that there are girls playing hockey. And she brought that up to me. And the conversation I had was, well, girls and boys can do all the things. We talked last time about certain jobs that are coded men versus women. I would say that dance is probably still pretty heavily coded female.
Some of the boys who were dancing were probably like young enough that they might have just been there because their parents are like, you're going to go do this. And I
have to bring your sister here. So you're also going to go and give us a couple hours every Tuesday.
And that might be why.
Sure.
And I'm interested in what it would be like to talk to those parents and actually ask them, what's your rationale? Is there a long game that you're thinking about in this? And then as the ages went up, my mind started to change a little bit. There was one where the class is split by age.
Okay.
And so it was the perfect age where girls hit puberty just a little bit before boys. And so
was he a good 6 inches
he
shorter
was
than
about
everybody?
6 inches shorter than everybody else. And he was pretty good, I think. Like he kept up with everyone, but he was 6 inches shorter. And I was thinking about this. Next year's recital, he'll be like 4 inches taller than all of them. But it's like, what a progression it'll be. And then as it went up, some of them were really, really good.
Yeah.
And these strong, graceful, powerful bodies, and they were lifting people and jumping higher.
Well, I know dance and cheerleading are not the same thing. I'm going to put them in a similar bucket right now for the one reason of, a big college sports fan, right?
Uh-huh.
And I watch college sports and I see the male cheerleaders. The male cheerleaders oftentimes are some of the most in shape athletes
Yeah.
on the football field. And
they're also a different shape than
exactly.
girls.
Yeah, right. And so,
Right.
as you talk about what's the long game for some of these young men, it's this is the way I'm going to be in shape. I'm going to gain muscle. I'm going to gain dexterity. I'm going to gain all the things.
Yeah, but there's also like a gracefulness to their bodies as well.
Sure.
And so there's so many different things that I was thinking about, mostly just the positives. I'm sure that there's room for them to be bullied.
Absolutely.
Bullies are people who are insecure about something. And so the boys who are bullying them will likely be insecure about some part of them being dancers. But I think there are so many positives too, right? Like you're bringing up, there's getting in shape and doing something that makes you strong. There's also, I think, a very unique way that they can be able to be comfortable and confident in their bodies, ways that stereotypically most men probably are not, right? There's just a gracefulness. There's footwork that could work in other sports as well, right?
I mean, if you're anything like me, I don't like slow dancing with my wife at a wedding because I'm that bad.
Oh man,
dancing,
I'm so bad
right?
too.
And so when I do see anybody, women or men, but specifically men that are good at dancing, all the power to you. And if you have the confidence to do that, you have the confidence to get in front of a group of people, that's amazing. And I give you all the credit in the world because it is something, no matter, in my opinion, how much I practice, how much I try, even if I believe that I'm good at it in a room by myself where nobody's watching, there's zero chance I'm going to do it out in public.
That's in your mind though, too, right? There's this confidence of growing up being on the stage, and the boys are, whether purposely or not, they're spotlighted. They're in a different costume because there's the girl costume and the boy costume.
Right.
And when you set up the formation, it has to look symmetrical. So the boy is already always in the middle because there's one of them.
Right.
And so they're always spotlighted, and they do things slightly different than the girls do once they're a little bit older, it seems, as well. And so they're very much spotlighted, and I'm sure a lot of confidence comes from that. But I also think, and I think we talked about this as well last time, with what if most careers could be closer to 50-50?
What if most dance classes
right?
50-50?
Sure, but even just the boys who are there, they are learning skills that other boys are not, that don't have to do with dancing, because they're spending time with women, becoming comfortable, communicating and getting close, and finding that they have a lot in common, and that you don't have to play it too big in your head that you talk to a lot of women, but also it probably works well for them if they do want to have romantic interests with women in the future, because there's a different level of comfort and confidence, and probably to be able to say to a woman, I performed in dance. Well, and I think it communicates something different than the toxic masculine messages we can send in other directions. So something.
So, question for you: did anybody that you were around notice the boys dancing in the predominantly girl classes, or did anybody say anything about it, that there was something to look at?
I would guess that 99%, if not 100% of everyone there probably had some version of focus on the boys. I just,
look.
Right. Just like in my head, there was more. My wife did say something about the oldest boy who's this spotlight, it seemed, who's could move his body in such amazing ways. Also in the one class where the boy was 6 inches shorter, I did turn to my mother-in-law and say, it's the perfect age for the the puberty thing. And because I thought it was kind of funny to point that out.
It is funny for sure.
But it's just something cool to think about. I think there's so many positives and lessons you can learn from being in something that is so not stereotypically the place where you're supposed to be, and to thrive in it, because they don't hide the boys. They don't discourage the boys. It's fun to see that they are wanting to attract boys who would be interested in doing something that is not stereotypically a boy activity.
I love that. And I think as we continue to talk about these things, last week we talked about a lot about how to maybe attract females into professions that were male dominated. We talked again about males being attracted into teaching and nursing, what have you. So I think it's cool. It's an interesting observation. I love that you brought that up.
Yeah. I was sitting there and I was thinking, I want to talk about
I got something to talk about.
Yeah, me and Bobby had to talk about this because
I love that.
It's just very much a focus that was happening for me. So we got to talk about something that is bucking a trend here,
sure,
right? What if we could put ourselves out on a limb, be braver, build this confidence, move away from toxic masculinity? So enough of that. Now let's get into our segment here.
Why do men like this?
Because today, for Why Do Men Like This, I think we should start with something as we're about to talk about what we learned from camp. Before that, I think it would be great to talk about why do men like activities that are painful?
Yeah, intentionally causing ourselves harm when we go.
Yeah, it's
go
not
about
even
these
activities. Isn't even fair. It's not activities. It's
stupid
doing
shit
dumb
we do.
things that are painful.
All right, we need an example. So,
yes. So
give us an example.
The first thing that I think of, and I want to say, yeah, and we're like young and silly. I'm going to be honest.
We weren't young enough.
We were on staff. It might have been the first year, might have been the fourth year, who knows when, but we were college students at the time. We were not 13-year-old kids with an excuse. Our campers were sleeping, and we thought, I can only imagine how we got to this, but we thought probably the best thing to do right now, you and I, is to go on the porch with a tennis racket and a tennis ball and see what it feels like to get hit by a tennis ball that's hit at you.
Right.
And it wasn't like try and evade the tennis ball. It was, I want to know what it feels like. So I'm going to stand here and let you hit the ball until you hit me in the back with the tennis ball.
Yeah.
And we did that.
And it hurts.
Yeah.
That's incredibly unpleasant. And I don't know why, right? Is it are we trying to prove to each other that we're cool? I don't know that that's the answer because I don't think it made either one of us cool.
And we already knew
that we were
idiots. How not cool we both were, and we were still friends. And so,
yeah. So, yeah. Can I give the other example?
Okay.
All right, I'll give the other example. So this was when we were campers.
Yes. At least we have that.
We were children, developing brains, and as a bunk, most of the boys in our bunk, or at least 50% of the boys in our bunk, decided that it would be important to learn about the effects of icy hot, the cooling liniment that you put on your muscles. However, we decided that muscle aches and pains weren't going to be the application, and we were going to apply it to our manhood, which at the time was a developing
our boyhood.
And we wanted to see what that felt like. And not only that, we did this sequentially. This wasn't everybody.
Oh, what a good point.
This wasn't everybody took the icy hot in their hand and everybody reached down and applied the icy hot at once. We almost watched as the reaction of all of our friends that did this.
And no reaction said, oh yeah, that would be a good idea for me to do also.
There was not a single part of it.
We still did it.
That was pleasant. So again, these are the types of activities we're talking about. Activities that we do that inherently cause us discomfort, if not pain. So why do men like this? Let's go with a couple of easy ones. Camaraderie. Everybody else was doing it, so I want to fit in.
You can't be the one who didn't do it.
Exactly. Although there were ones.
Honestly, it probably was half or less than half of the bunk that did it. Yeah. And I, at least sitting here now, very much admire the kids who watched first and said, "Man, I'm
not going to do that." Yeah,
right.
Or the ones that were actively campaigning against it, because I do remember there were a couple that were telling us like, "No, you shouldn't do that. It's a bad idea."
They're correct,
and they were all correct. And to be clear, for those that haven't used icy hot before, this is not an effect that you can wash off. It doesn't wash off.
Water actually
it makes it worse. And it doesn't go away quickly. It lasts for a prolonged period, as is designed by the makers of icy hot. Great job on your product. So
for sore muscles,
we experienced this for a good, I would say, at least hour, if not a little longer than an hour. Right. So why else do men do these things? I mean, you learn about yourself. What's my pain tolerance? What's my tolerance for stupidity? We could throw the word courage in there. It takes a little bit of courage to do something, to stand and let you hit a tennis ball at my back.
That's true.
Right. So, I don't know. Any other Any other good things that you can think
Why
of?
do men like this? Yeah. Why is it good? It's always good to get the creative juices flowing, I guess. Creativity, why not?
Here you go. Why is it a bad thing?
So many things.
Because putting icy hot where it shouldn't go is not a good thing. I'm sure
what if we hit the tennis ball and hit each other in like the spine?
Yeah.
And there are obviously lots of other dumb things we've done.
Oh, for sure.
Have led to bruises and surgeries and stings and lots of
I remember there was
things that are dangerous.
A friend of ours, and if you're listening, I appreciate you doing this, who brought a scooter, one of the Razor scooters to camp. And I decided it was important to scooter around our cabin.
More important than keeping your front teeth.
Long story short, I have an implant in one of my front teeth because I hit my mouth so hard that at the end of the summer I needed a root canal that resulted in an implant. So why do we do stupid things? Because we're stupid kids. And I don't know necessarily that it's always a bad thing.
I'm sure that there's a level that can be crossed that we probably hovered somewhat around. Yeah. I want to give us enough credit that we probably knew the line.
And I want to say too, like, I don't think we bullied each other into doing these activities. No. I think there was obviously a level of peer pressure, but I don't think it crossed the line into us forcing activities onto others that were in our cabin. So camp. This is a great segue into the rest of our conversation.
Okay, so let's call it there. There's our why do men like this? Doing things that are painful for no good reason.
If you've done anything stupid like that you want to share, please tell us what it is. Here. Tell us what it is, what you experienced. And that's always fun. Always fun.
Yeah. Let's dive into this in a little bit of a more serious note. What we want to talk about today, we did spend a very large part of our formative years and then years after that at camp as campers and on staff. So I think we learned a lot about what it meant to be a man in that process. Yeah. So let's split this up. We'll talk about it from what it was like to learn from being a part of a peer group, so people our age. Then we can talk about what it's like to learn from older men in this experience, whether that was counselors or even people a little bit older than that in more leadership positions. And then because we became counselors at one point, we could talk about how that shifted for us when we were in those roles as well.
I love it.
Yeah. So first one to jump in here, we went to camp. We were 11, 12 years old. Yeah. And theoretically spent just about every single day and night of our lives in our house with our family and our parents. And then all of a sudden they said, how about 4 weeks in a bunk with some teenagers and 12 of your closest friends? And well, actually, I went knowing nobody, but eventually they became some very close friends. Did you know people going?
No, I didn't know anybody. Okay. Yeah, I know nobody going to camp. It was a brand new experience. I think we had a little bit slightly different experiences. My parents worked at the camp, so I was a staff brat, and for a number of those years, I was the quintessential staff brat. I was a pain in the ass, without question. But no, I didn't know any peers going into camp. And I think that was unique. So one of the things that I think is really interesting to point out here is that we lived with these people and we lived with them over the course of a number of years, but for a relatively short period of time over those years, right? And so I knew you for a month when I was entering 5th grade, and then a month when I was entering 6th grade, right? And then obviously as we got closer, I would see you throughout the rest of the year, but we didn't live together by any stretch of the imagination. And so I think
until we lived together,
right? So I think that there's something about that fragmented kind of relationship, fragmented friendship. You know, we hear all the time, like, camp friends are different than your home friends.
Yeah. Well, I think adding to that, it's fragmented, but intense. Like the people who you go to school with, you see them every day during the week, for several hours a day. But there's something different about 4 weeks sleeping in the same place, eating at the same table for every meal, going to the same activities, using the same bathrooms. I think there's an intensity level that does create such I think a depth in some way.
Yeah, I think one of the things as I look back on it now was the difference in both physical and mental maturity of the groups in the cabins, right? I will say I was probably less mature, probably both physically and maybe mentally, emotionally, whatever you want to call it, than a lot of my peers that were in at least on the early stages of camp. I think probably I caught up later on at camp, but it was interesting to see. And at times it was maybe a little embarrassing. I knew there were some of my friends that were shaving at camp.
Yeah.
I never shaved at camp until I was probably entering that 10th, 11th grade summer. So I think that looking up at some of your peers that were at different stages of maturity, different stages of that, 6 inches shorter than your friends. And again, I think that was something that I look back on now and I go, I wonder what that did.
Yeah, that's an interesting one to think about. I imagine that was something that I experienced as well. But something that stood out for me was watching other people's levels of confidence. I was not a very confident child. I was not in the very popular group in the
Same.
in school, in the year-round schedule.
Same.
And I think when we went to camp, were some of the more well-liked and popular people. And so there was this different experience of learning what it means to feel a little bit more confident in a group of people and be seen in a positive light by other people and maybe not be bullied by other people in the ways that maybe I was. It sounds like maybe we were year-round a little bit differently, especially when we were younger.
I appreciate you bringing that up because that was one of the reasons that camp was so special to me.
Same.
Because I was, and I'll just put it out in the easiest way to say it. I was a cool kid at camp. I wasn't a cool kid at home. Right.
We never talked about this.
Right?
I can't believe we never talked about that. We have this in common.
That was one of the reasons that camp was so cool to me was for those 4 weeks, camp wasn't the place where I was, like you said, getting bullied or didn't fit in the way that I fit in at camp. I think that it's not to say that that was everybody's experience. Just to be clear, I know that there were people in our bunks, people in our age groups that didn't feel that way.
But let's actually name this as well, right? We're sitting here. You called it the cool kids.
Yeah.
If there's cool kids, there's the not cool kids too. And so in some way, we contributed to the thing
we flipped that year-long script that we were experiencing. And
I think we had a pretty decent size group that we were all close with together.
Yeah.
But it wasn't everyone. And so there was probably some exclude, maybe just in the margins, which might be even more painful.
Right.
But there was exclusion for sure from other people. And it wasn't when you're 11 years old. I wish I had the wisdom to be able to look at this and say, I know what this feels like. I want to make sure not to do the same thing. But it was probably for me more of a, my gosh, I can't risk losing this thing that feels so good that I don't have year round. I don't want to put myself in an opportunity to maybe not be seen.
No, for sure. And again, as I sit here, as we think about this and reminisce a little bit, I am sure that there were things that I did that probably didn't feel good for other people in our age group. And
no comment.
I apologize for some of those things, right? But I think one of the other parts that I want to talk about too is camp was the place that I had my first relationships with girls. And I know I had my first kiss at camp and we had our camp girlfriends for the 4 weeks we were there. And oftentimes it was multiple girlfriends over a 4-week period.
Speak for yourself.
Anyway, but I think, again, that was one of the things that I think we all saw. It was a big part of the summer, especially obviously as we got older.
It's a part of what we learned.
Absolutely.
Like, what does it mean to like girls, to want to attract girls, to be attracted to
And to be clear, we were some pretty cool kids with our pointy gelled hair and our
I wore my backwards
hats.
hat. Yep. Yeah, we were super cool.
We were really cool back then. Not that we're very cool now, to be honest.
Do you think that experiencing this difference from year round to summer impacted your personality, whether just at camp or in general?
Thinking back on it now, I wish it had more. I wish that I was able to take the confidence that I had at camp and bring that into my yearly life. At least during the middle school years, my peers knew what our camp was. We went to a Jewish summer camp in North Georgia. And so my peers at my private Jewish day school understood Jewish summer camp.
Right.
That was not the case when I got to my South Florida public high school, where I was very much not in the majority as the young Jewish kid. I wish that I was able to bring some more of that confidence, especially during those high school years that I had at camp, because I think that it would have maybe helped with some of the fitting in challenges and things like that. What about you?
Yeah. So when I think about what developed for me in camp, when people liked me and were nice to me and wanted to be around me, I think that it helped me learn the value of silliness. I think I became a little sillier. The more I became kind of comfortable in my body and who I was, I would joke around more and not take things seriously. And got a nickname for that.
You did. You definitely did. Yep.
Yeah. Dumb shit that was it, just to make sure that we're being clear.
I think we kept it clean and called you DS most of the time.
That is true.
Yeah, it stands for dumb shit.
Yeah, and I got very good grades in school.
It was so opposite of what you actually are as a person.
And I think that was kind of the point. Like I got to let loose and got
so
to
were you more yourself at camp, or were you more yourself at home, or
who are you? Right? Like who actually are you? I don't know who I actually am. If you strip everything down, it is what you create from places that make you feel comfortable or uncomfortable.
Right.
And I think I became sillier and like a little looser at home, like maybe not probably at school a little bit and with the friends that I did have, but at home for sure got a little bit sillier and had a little bit more fun. And I think that was valuable as well, right? Maybe having at least one place where I felt confident in who I was allowed room for that to develop a little bit more.
Well, I think one of the things about camp, it was a place where there were very few worries. There were very few stresses. There was no homework. There was no tests. There were no, am I going to make the team? It was a place where the biggest stress that I had every day was making sure that I knew where my laundry was and I had enough underwear to wear. And I did not succeed many a day in the underwear conversation.
And it was still okay.
And again, it didn't matter, right? So I think that camp was that place for me that just allowed me to have just a freedom that I wasn't able to experience fully elsewhere. And I know that that was the case for my dad. I know that's why he went to camp as a staff member for so long. He felt that way as well. When I look back, it was definitely one of the places where I learned how to be myself with my peers. Was I always doing that in the best way possible? Absolutely not.
Right.
I was a child for a lot of camp. But again, I think it allowed me some freedom that wasn't possible during the rest of the year.
Yeah, I think freedom makes a lot of sense there, right? We're left to be a little bit more independent. We had counselors, but they were 18 to 21 years old.
Yeah, like when you think about your camp, we'll talk about this in the next section, but like these were just slightly older children watching children.
Exactly.
Right?
And so we had to learn from each other and rely on each other. But then also we learned what it's like to feel a bit looser and sillier and to maintain our roles in some sort of hierarchy, which I'm sure contributed in a negative way to other people. Absolutely. Like we talked about before, that's something that we learned about masculinity there as well. You don't always get to feel this way year round. So
live it up when you can.
Right. Live it up and stay on top when you can also, which if I had to think and I look back, mostly everything I did, I think I would be proud of, but I'm sure there are some things that I would say like, that I wish I maybe looked out for other people a little bit more because that's what my instincts told me to do in this masculine environment, that if you lose that, then you just go back to the way that you feel all year round. And so, a lot of interesting things.
Absolutely.
About that.
So what if we take this the next step? So we talked about our cohort. What about our staff members, and not just our counselors, but maybe the people that were in supervisory roles? Let's talk about our kind of views of them as we were campers.
Thinking about not being the cool kid all year round. I remember my first summer. I remember my first night. I was very nervous and homesick and afraid, but I remember the male counselors in my bunk and in the bunk next, because each building had two bunks in it. Right. And I remember seeing them and they looked so old, right? We're talking about they were likely 19 years old at the time. I would have guessed like 48, because that's what 11-year-old kids think of people who are even 3 years older than them. Right. And I looked at them as like, wow, they were so confident and loud. They had just had a month where they were taking care of other kids. I was the second session. And so they knew what they were doing and they had planned for it and all of
shit
this
together. Right. They wear tie dye. They have long hair. These guys are cool.
Yeah. And they like bantered with each other. Right. And I saw this, I think something I probably had very little experience of, watching teenage and 20-year-old men communicate with each other and interact with each other. And I remember feeling like they were very confident and very cool. And that was just kind of the start for me.
One of the things I think was really interesting was, for a lot of our years as campers, we had the same counselors.
Yes.
But we were able to see these staff members grow up as we grew up. But like, I am in the same exact place as you. I thought these were old guys. They were super cool and they had their shit together, and they just were what I wanted to be, what I wanted to look up to. One of our cool counselors back in the days of CDs had a binder of CDs. They were all like the explicit.
They had bad words. Words
in them.
Bad words.
They were like the Adam Sandler stand-ups. They were the
and even
DMX
just like rap that had bad words in it.
Right.
Yeah.
To me, that was so cool. Like, that was the epitome of cool. The other thing that I remember, but when we were granted permission to go into the staff rooms, oh my gosh, you had made it. Like, I felt I wanted to be their friend.
Yeah.
Right. Because I thought they were super, super cool. And to their credit, that's what they should have been doing. Right. They should have been making us feel comfortable to a point that we wanted to be. Now, is there a position of authority that maybe was blurring the lines a little bit there? Probably.
Were we paid off to do lots of things with candy? Yes.
Without question.
Like carrying 30-pound laundry bags.
Yeah, throughout the summer. Yes. But again, we looked up to them. And whether it was because we were told, hey, these are your counselors, they're going to be the coolest guys out there, or because that's just how they carried themselves.
Right.
I don't know. It was just something that I thought was really, really interesting.
Yeah. And I do want to name also some of the ones who are not just in the bunk.
Yeah.
Right. There was the age group head that we had, I think, twice, who was, I thought he was the coolest guy in the world.
Coolest guy.
And respected him very much. And then our camp director as well. I looked up to these men a lot, because there was just this, I will stand in front of a group of people, whether it's just the age group or the entire camp, and be able to clearly create an experience that makes people feel happy and safe and
seen.
Yeah.
Seen. One of the things, so you mentioned the camp director. Mm-hmm. He was the first person, I still don't know how he found out. He was the first person to call me from Israel after my dad passed.
Yeah, wow.
And again, these are, and this is a relationship that I have and will continue to have with this man, hopefully forever. But he was a person with such a persona, such a presence, but allowed us to feel that we were important as campers.
I think that was a very cool thing he was able to do, where when he would walk by, you would make sure you were doing the right thing, but not because he didn't make you feel afraid.
No.
You just felt respect for him and comfort with him at the same time.
His thing, he would walk up and he was a big guy, but he would like seemingly appear out of nowhere and give his quintessential, he would say shalom, and it was like a big deep voice, which in Hebrew means hello. But you almost wanted to be shalom, right? Like you wanted that and recognition.
I'm pretty sure he knew every single person's name.
Yep.
And there's 400 campers and another 100-something staff members. And you look up to this person, he stands in front of the camp. And then if you see him in the hallway, he calls you by name. Like there's just this comfort. And
these are skills that I think resonate today with me completely. Mm-hmm. I still struggle with people's names. I work on it every single day, but once I do know your name and once I can remember it, I let you know that I remember your name, and I can 100% attribute that to lessons that
I
I've
love
learned,
that.
lessons that I learned at camp. There were other people too outside of the counselors in our cabins. There were some of the people, the year-round staff at camp, that I became
Oh yeah, you
close
did.
with as a camper, and then family friends. But these were people that were not. They worked year round at the camp. They lived in northern Georgia, and these were people that dedicated their lives to making camp the place that it is. And I consider them some of my closest friends and almost family in some regards. And I'm so excited that they're still there,
Yeah, that's cool.
for my daughter to be at camp with them. But I want to talk. One of the things that we did as campers, I don't remember what summer it was, but we had our counselors. And I do remember that we had, in the beginning of the summer, we had some tension in our bunk for whatever the reason was. All the boys weren't getting along. And so what they did was they initiated what they had called this fraternity pledging, rushing.
They basically ran us as a fraternity and pledge program.
And that was the summer you got your nickname. I got a nickname too. I don't remember what it was. I don't know if you remember.
Not as catchy.
Yeah, it wasn't catchy. It wasn't interesting or fun. Now when I look back on it, I go, well, what an amazing program that these staff members ran. Now, did they push the boundaries maybe a little bit with some of the things they had us do? Without question. But
I think we loved every second of it as well.
We died for it. We wanted nothing more than to be a part of this fraternity. The end of the session or the middle of the session, wherever it was, we had our initiation into the fraternity. There was a couple of nights where we snuck out of our bunks with our entire bunk with our counselors. I am sure they had permission to do.
I think one of the nights was with our age group head as well. She came with us.
And so, but I bring it up just to say, like, these are the things that I remember. These are the lessons that I think we learned as campers and looked up to these staff members. And when I look at again, trying to develop what that theory of manhood looked like, these were some great experiences and some great guys and some people that I really looked up to. And when I was a counselor, and we'll talk about that here in a couple minutes, when I was a counselor, I wanted my campers to look at me as I looked at them. I don't know that I fully succeeded. I don't, maybe for some campers and not others. But that was something that I kind of strove towards, if you will.
Yeah, there's just an admiration.
Perfect word.
Of these guys must be so cool. And you know what? They might sit there too and be like, I liked camp because I wasn't cool except for when I was at camp like us. But it doesn't matter because they held themselves in a way that said we should be confident and we should be silly and we should learn to be leaders because that's what they had to be as well. And they did, like you talked about, it was a cool thing when you got invited into the staff room. They did that for everyone. We didn't know that, right? We felt like we were special, but they went out of their way to make sure that every camper had a positive experience. And I think that's a really cool thing to maybe want to admire growing up with that. Before we end this part as well, though, I do want to name, there were likely some things that we learned from them that might not have been the best.
Oh, yeah. Without question. Yeah. I'll be honest. I'm pretty sure they were adjacently aware of our IC Hot initiative. I don't think they were involved. I don't think they were advocating for it. I for sure know they were not advocating against it though. And so just to put that out there, there were things that, again, now when I look back on it and I go, well, they were just slightly older children watching slightly younger children. Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if to some extent there was also some learning messages of what it's like to be a little exclusionary. I think some summers they did a good job of turning us against the other bunks in a playful way. And some summers they turned us against the other bunks in an exclusionary and you were better than them kind of way. There were some messages I learned about how to treat women that was really positive from a lot of the staff. I think there were some things that maybe I learned just like through observation that I hope I didn't take with me, just from thinking back to that as well. And so I just want to name, like, there's definitely a lot of human aspects to all of this. I think we caught on to a bit of drug use.
Oh, for sure.
From some of those counselors, not caught on, like did it with them, but caught on that it was happening.
little bit of drinking happened at camp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So right, there's
There's the good and the not as good, right? But it all goes hand in hand, and it helped to I think give us an experience that helped to give us a little bit of an understanding of what it looked like to be a man, and maybe it was being a man at camp, and maybe that was a difference. Maybe being a man at camp meant something different than doing that in, we called it all the time like the real world outside of camp, and it's because camp is a bubble.
Yeah, but you can't fully separate yourself, right? Like you said, who was the real you?
Sure.
Like they do mix together.
Absolutely, for sure. All right, so let's take it now a step further. So we both were campers for a very long time. Then we were both staff members for an equally long.
Because why would you leave somewhere that feels so much better than the real world?
Good, right? I mean, at some point when we became staff members, I worked at camp as an entering 12th grader. So I was one of the youngest staff members at camp. I was a lifeguard all the way through until I ran the waterfront. You were what was considered a bunk counselor. So you were the counselor that was responsible for the programming in the cabin. So we had a very different responsibility set.
That's true. Yeah.
We had a very different experience. So let's talk a little bit about, as we were staff members, what we learned, what we brought with us, what we didn't bring with us, what we wish we had brought with us.
Yeah. So actually, just to bridge the past section with this one, very quickly, I think before the campers even got there, because we had a week before the campers got there, I learned this just from learning the rules and the orientation and everything that we need to learn as new counselors. I learned all of my favorite counselors had one thing in common. They did the most things we were told not to do as counselors.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have a full week, staff week before camp starts. I agree with you 100%. Those counselors that I loved the most listened the least during staff week.
It seemed like they took the least seriously a lot of the concepts that we were told to,
without question,
to do. Yeah.
And to be even more clear, you always, as a camper and then as a staff member, were much more adherent to the rules than I was. Is that a nice way to say that?
That's a nice way to say that. Is that a good way to say that?
And so I pushed the boundaries a lot more. I would even go further than that into saying you were a much more respectful young adult, young person than I was. And I do now look up to that younger version of you. And I think of you in a different place and say, man, I wish I could have not done some of that stupid, not as good shit as I did when I was a younger staff member. But yeah, so when you were a staff member early on, what did you want to do as a staff member? Did you just want to go back to camp because it was time to go back to camp?
Well, for sure, yes. Yeah. Like that, I think, was my motivation. I took 2 years off in between. So you took 0 off in between. I took 2 years off in between. I did 2 different programs, the last year of camp and that first year of staff that you were on. Right. But then it was a no-brainer for me to go back because you just continue the camp journey. Let's do that. And then that first week, when it's all the staff and no campers, it was glorious.
Right.
We're just with our friends and having fun, and there's no counselors. But then after this really fun week of being a camper with basically no counselors,
14 kids show up.
14 kids show up in your bunk, and now you're in charge of taking care of them. And for me, I think I took that very seriously.
Yeah.
And maybe that is because of the different roles that we played. Sure. You very specifically were supposed to keep people alive when they were in bodies of water.
And I was very serious about that for a very long period of time. Yeah.
And I was supposed to keep people alive all the times they were not in bodies of water. And so I took it very seriously to make sure they were safe and to some extent doing all the things that they needed to do, waking up at the right times, taking showers.
I would also say you made it a very big point to make sure that all of your campers felt that they were important. All of your campers felt the way that you felt as a camper, but that all of them felt that way. That was something that I think you took very, very seriously. Now, after they went to bed and when we would hang out, we absolutely talked about our campers. My brother-in-law being one of them.
Oh my gosh, he was one of my campers for 5 summers.
But
love you, man.
But I think that you made it a very big point that all of your campers always felt that way. I did not. And I don't know that I did it intentionally. I struggled with it. I look back on it now and I'm like, man, I wish I wasn't an asshole to such and such kid or whatever it was. I don't think I was ever.
One camper did say that he had nightmares about you.
Yeah, I feel
in a mask.
I do feel bad about that. I don't know why. I didn't inherently torture any children at camp. I know that.
Just your presence was a little torturous.
Yeah, there we go. There we go.
But yeah, I think that I wanted to take seriously the role of creating the experience that I loved so much as a camper.
Yeah.
And so I did think about all the counselors that I had that helped me with that, but then also the experiences that I had, and tried to kind of mesh that together, where I think I maybe broke less rules than my favorite counselors, but for sure broke lots of the rules, the ones that felt like this
breakable.
Like this is not creating danger for the kid, but is something that is going to make them feel an extra level of camaraderie, or have an experience that creates a memory that is going to last for them, even though they should have maybe been somewhere else or doing something else. That I did find those to be an important part of what I was trying to create. Also, I stayed with the same kids. I was on staff for 5 years. I was with the same kids for 5 years, which is pretty rare, but I created some really strong relationships with them. I felt like I was able to create some sort of balance between wanting them to feel like we're buddies and close, and also I am the person who has to make sure you're doing the right thing and staying safe and all of that.
And I think they saw you in that light of like, he's the cool counselor. He's going to make sure I'm not doing stupid shit that he's not involved in. But that stupid shit's not going to be real bad at the end of the day. And so, but yeah, I think one of the unique things about your experience at camp was that you did have the same group of kids, right? And you saw them grow, you saw them mature, some quicker than others
when they
did mature. And so I thought that was interesting. I had a different experience. I had random groups of
and then you had no campers.
And then I had no campers. Yeah, actually, for the majority of my time on staff, I was what was considered non-bunk staff, and so there's housing for non-bunk staff. Once I was in charge of the waterfront and doing the water ski program, I didn't live with campers, which is a much different experience. You're not beholden to a certain group of campers. You're kind of beholden to all of the campers at camp, which is interesting, different, unique. I also had a leadership role at the waterfront with a staff that all worked together at the lake, at the pool. So it was a different experience for me.
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to work with children at very different ages, from the older campers at camp all the way to some of the younger campers at camp. Those were challenging. I think as a counselor, I definitely had a different mindset. I wanted camp to still be fun for me, and I wanted camp to be fun for the campers. And I was going to kind of bend the rules and make that happen. I'm not saying that was a great way to go about doing things. I would say that being a staff member at camp was my first real job growing up, but also one that I still look back on even today at almost 40 years old, working in a vastly different career than Jewish camping. There are lessons that I take from being on staff at camp and apply them to how I work in my career today. I think that's the purpose of camp, right? I mean, I think that's the goal of camp, is to set our future generations up to succeed.
That's interesting. I like that. Thinking about where I do counseling.
Those words are similar.
The jobs are not exactly the same, but I do remember one of the things that stands out to me is the kid who was having a hard day or not feeling included by others, that I did find it comfortable in some way to be able to sit with that kid and to talk through that. Obviously did not have the skills of a professional at that point, and so probably didn't do better than a 19-year-old job. Hey, but I was 19. Leave me alone.
We had weekly sessions.
Yeah,
sure. What they were called.
We ate candy and tried to pay attention without falling asleep because we didn't sleep so much at night.
Right.
Yeah. But I also learned something that I think I learned a lot was when we were campers, there were the cool things to do and the not cool things to do. And I found that something that was very special about camp was that as on staff, when you dive in if you have created that connection and that admiration from your campers, they're going to go, oh, that's a cool thing I'm going to dive into. And so I wouldn't play that, right? There were some of the things where I would like roll my eyes and be like, right? Because it'll probably wear out if you dive into everything. And they're like, oh, it's just Alex, he's a nerd. But I would kind of measure some parts, but then there were other silly things. Like there were just activities that were nonsense. And if you dive in, they're going to have a great time.
Yeah.
And we would dance every Saturday night and we would get the counselors together in our age group. I know some very close friends that I have. We would get so into the dancing. And so even these teenage boys would be doing these funny dances.
Well, I remember you really dove into color war too. Was a big deal for you, right? And I think color war is one of those things at camp where you have kids that are really involved in it and love it and think it's the coolest thing from a sports perspective.
Right.
And you have ones that think it's the coolest thing from a spirit perspective. And then you have others that are like, I don't like either of these things and I don't feel good about it.
When you're a counselor, you don't get to pick which reason you like it for.
Right.
You have to do all of it and make sure the kids are engaged as well.
Yeah.
And so just having an inhuman amount of energy for 24 hours straight, knowing you're going to crash, it's worth it because those were some of my favorite memories as a camper, but then they did become my favorite memories as a counselor. I hope some of the campers' favorite memories too, because you just, when you go all in, then they see this is a cool thing. I don't have to worry about what other people are thinking. If this is someone that I look up to or someone who is in an authority role and they're wanting to have fun, I can just link on and go have fun doing that. And so I think that was interesting. When I'm actually sitting here right now, I'm wondering where I excel with that in my life now and where I should probably.
That's a really good point.
Right. In some activities my kids do and some things we do as a family, probably this is a way that I kind of create strength in those moments, but probably also something that I overlook in other times where maybe I'm not diving in as much as I can in a way that would create that same experience for my children or the people that were.
I think in our relationships too, there's things, there's aspects of whether it's conversations or I know that my wife and I try to do game nights or some date nights. It's sometimes hard after you put the kids to sleep, after you've worked a full day. And oftentimes this is on Friday evenings for us. You can't jump all the way in, but maybe to your point, if you did that, then it would and have that same effect. Love the way that you're thinking there about how do we take our experiences at camp, a place that we felt comfortable, a place that we felt love, a place that we felt connection, a place that we felt a true purpose,
ownership,
and pull that more into our lives now. But we just figured it out 23 years after our last summer as campers, right? And but I think it's also a place that we felt, and it's not just a place. Yes, our daughters are going back to the same camp that we went to, but it's just this mindset of camp that I want my daughter to have. I am so excited for her for next week and for your daughter next week, for this to be their first camp experience. And I hope that their staff members feel the way that you did when you were a staff member, that they want to provide our kids with the same experiences that they had.
And that, I love campers. I love that you're bringing that up because I know we're talking about our daughters right now, but just thinking about us and the male campers who are going this summer even. We talked last time we sat down for the podcast about careers and professions that are mostly male, mostly female, coded female. And one of the things we talked about when we were talking about teachers was how powerful it would be if more boys grew up with role models, because there were more kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade male teachers. That makes me think of camp counselors as well now too. This is not just, I hope you have a fun summer and feel good about yourself and about the thing you did for 4 weeks, but also what is it like to be a man in all the best ways. And of course, there are some of the not best ways that we talked about before, but I think that's a really formative opportunity to be a positive role model for other men growing up. This is like, we are spending a summer wanting to care for you, wanting to make sure you feel safe, wanting to make sure you have fun, wanting to make sure you balance that with kindness. And I think more and more about having mentors and just role models that can teach us so much. And I don't want to dive too deep into a whole nother thing either. But I also am starting to think about some of the older campers that I looked up to.
Sure.
And so even seeing that every level has some version of role model you can be. I looked up to, I think it was the boys who were 1 year older than us, or there was a handful of them who had just the most spirit and love and dive in, like we were talking about before with camp, that made me want to aspire to that. And so even campers have that opportunity, that responsibility, maybe in some way, to be role models for others. That's something that is cool to think about.
There's always eyes on you.
Yeah.
As parents, we've seen that.
We're always learning and always
kids are always listening.
Yeah.
The kids are always listening at camp. So awesome. Cool. Well, it's a fun conversation. Yeah. We could probably talk about camp for hours and hours and hours.
We'll turn this off and then we'll talk about camp.
We'll keep talking about camp. So appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for going down the memory lane here with me as we're about to send our kids off to get it started.
It's crazy.
Pretty cool. So let's end today with Ask a Therapist, Ask a Regular Guy. And so we got a question this week that I think goes very directly to
Ask a Therapist.
Right? This is a therapist thing, but I'm interested in what you think about on your side as well.
Yeah.
So we did get a question from someone. I'm going to paraphrase it, of course, here because I'm not reading right now. But what they were saying was, I've had a few experiences of therapy before, and I'm wanting to go back into it now. Those experiences weren't always positive. How do you find the right therapist for the experience that you're looking for? And so I have all of the answers that I would want to answer from my end, but I'm really interested too in the regular guy thought. What do you think is the way you would look for a therapist?
I love the question because it's a question that I've asked. There were two specific instances in my life where I looked for a therapist afterwards because I needed one. One was early on in my marriage, house burnt down. You were there. Well, you were there right afterwards. Thank you. And I knew that I needed to talk to someone because someone in my life told me I needed to talk to someone. And the second time was after my dad passed. And again, you were the someone who said, you should.
Now's a good time to do this.
And what I'll say, both of those times, I was unsuccessful in finding a therapist that I wanted to go and speak to multiple times. So the normal regular guy answer to this question is I don't have a clue because I was really bad at it and I struggled with it. I would say after my dad passed, I put a little bit more effort into it because it was something that I knew I needed deeply. And I spoke to a couple different therapists and kind of shopped around, if you will. But I'm going to ask the question directly back to you. How many sessions should I give a therapist?
Ooh,
what questions should I ask during therapy to make myself feel comfortable? So I'm going to throw this question 100% back to the therapist.
So we have you answer the question first. So instead you added to the question.
Bingo. Yeah. Because the answer I'll give you is I don't know. I really don't know outside of I didn't feel comfortable. And I didn't feel like it was going to be a situation that was going to help me to progress further. Now that may have just been me being negative, but I don't know. I'd love to hear the actual real answer to this question.
Yeah. And so the answer I'm going to give is the answer that I very much believe.
Sure.
I can't say that's the actual real answer, but I've also sought out individual therapy and couples therapy and had good experiences with both. I was very, very, very picky with the individual therapist and very, very, very picky with the couples therapist. But I also knew exactly what I was looking for, why I was looking for that specific thing.
Okay.
And then I was going into it knowing exactly what I was signing up for.
So as the regular guy, I didn't do any of that. So,
exactly.
So what you're saying is there's homework to start.
Kind of.
Pre-work.
Maybe.
Okay.
Right. And so obviously I'm in a different position than other people who don't know as much about what they're looking for in therapy, but I practice my therapy in a very specific way. I know we talked about this before, but I'm trained in emotionally focused therapy. And so I wanted someone who was trained in that, or at least very much believed in that type of therapy.
Okay.
So this is hard from the outside, right? Whenever anyone asks me, I'm like, let me just give you the exact people that I think you should see.
Sure.
It's because that's what I believe in, right?
Mm-hmm.
I believe that the experience you have in this type of therapy is one that can create long-term change, depth, growth in your life. And I know what to read in people's profiles that say they're really into it and not just like they dabble in kind of a little
Sure.
bit of everything. But what I tell people when they're in a place, like if they're in Atlanta, I'm like, "Here, I will give you exact names. These are the people you should go to."
Sure.
When they're somewhere else, I tell them, start by going on the local EFT therapist community website and look
EFT
for
being emotionally
focused therapy.
Okay.
Yes. That website is basically everyone who's a member of the community who is trained in that type of therapy. Of course, there are also other really great types of therapy. I'm not saying this is the only one you should do,
Sure.
but knowing that's what I wanted, that's what I would do in any of these cities that people ask for therapy. But I think the biggest thing is knowing what you're walking into and why.
Okay.
And that doesn't mean that no matter what therapist you have, you're going to have a positive experience, but it does mean that there are things that are going to make me uncomfortable.
Okay.
There are things that are not going to feel easy. And that's actually a part of it and not a problem with it. And some people want things to go a little faster than it's going to go. And so they become dissatisfied. Some people want to have that deep change, but want their therapist to kind of like drag it out of them and bring it out of them. And I think there are actually some really, really good therapists who do that.
Mm-hmm.
But if they don't find a therapist like that, they go, this isn't really helping me that much because they know they want to get a lot out of it, but they're not being brought to the water to drink. And some people know and they're ready and they want to go deep. And maybe the therapist is using an approach that just doesn't work for what they're looking for. And so that isn't the right therapist.
So is there a rule? Should I give a therapist 1 session, 2 sessions? Is it so individual that it's hard to make a hard and fast statement there?
So I would say you should not give the therapist any sessions, but give yourself a certain amount of sessions.
Very therapist answer. But
yeah,
I understand it and I appreciate that.
Right. If I'm going into therapy, I want to know why I'm going there, what I'm wanting to get out of it, and then just kind of feel out what that first session is like.
Okay.
And say, okay, this is going in the right direction or it's not going in the right direction. And then say, all right, I'm going to give myself another session now to go in and see if I can open up a little bit more, be a little bit more straightforward. Oh, it's feeling a little bit better or it's still not feeling good. I'm going to give myself one more session. If we're didn't love it, still not feeling good, I would give myself one more session to go in and say, hey, this is our third session. Can you help me understand your process? Because I think I know what I'm wanting to get out of this. And it doesn't necessarily feel like we're going in that right direction. And if the therapist is able to be clear and say, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Let me tell you about what I'm seeing, what we're doing, and why I think it's actually moving us in the right direction. I would trust that person. And I would say, okay, I'm going to give myself another few sessions and maybe kind of shift my mindset in the way that they're talking about it. If they are not so clear and you're not so clear afterwards, let's say maybe not. If they're defensive and arguing with you, like, okay, we're good. I'm going to go somewhere else because not every therapist is right for every person and you don't have to just stick it out. But you are generally the person who is going to dictate how well the therapy goes. There are some amazing therapists out there, but for the most part, we can work with what we're given. And so if you're not feeling so open, if you're feeling a little bit unsure, if you can name those things in therapy, now your therapist can actually know how to help you a little bit more. And if you're going to therapy because you think you're supposed to, or because someone else told you to, and you go and you're like, oh, I'll just give it a try. You may not actually be you may not be giving yourself a session there. And so it doesn't matter what the therapist does because you're already not wanting what you could get out of therapy in that moment.
I really appreciate how you're framing this of giving yourself, because I never framed it that way. I never thought of it that way. I never experienced it that way. I experienced it in a way that I was going car shopping and I was looking for a car salesman to sell me on why I should let them sell me a car. When what I'm hearing from you is I should have perhaps been thinking about it as going into a situation and giving myself the opportunity to find someone that I was comfortable sharing with, that I was comfortable speaking with, that I was comfortable having an emotional release to. So I really appreciate that frame, because I'll tell you from the regular guy perspective, and it may just be me, I don't think it is. That's something I've never heard before. And so I appreciate that perspective. And I appreciate the clarity on that, because again, when I look at it, when I went into these situations, and just like you, I've had really great success in couples therapy with my wife and I, and really wonderful couples therapists. And I think it's maybe because I was leading on my wife, who is a couples therapist.
She did what I did when I was looking for therapist.
Right? Thinking back maybe to some of these experiences that I had unsuccessfully finding myself an individual therapist. I appreciate that. And I think that's going to be it's a helpful mindset shift that I know I'll take, and I hope other people can take that as well.
Yes, I like that. If I just jump on your buying a car and a car salesman thing, it's a little different than a test drive, because therapy is supposed to be uncomfortable in the first place. It's not supposed to be comfortable from the start.
I appreciate that. Yeah. This is really helpful. And I think it's hard sometimes, right? Because people look at it and they go, all right, well, I've just made the time commitment. I've taken an hour, if not more, out of my schedule to go and do something. It's a financial commitment, because unfortunately, it's not something that a lot of medical insurance covers. And when it does, it's not fully covered. What have you, there is a financial commitment to it.
And the insurance companies don't reimburse
therapists
what they believe is a fair rate. And so the therapists who feel like they can create a full caseload based on their excellent work they do, stop taking insurance as well.
And again, these are all things that I don't think a lot of people recognize that. I don't think a lot of people realize that. And it's hard to put all that into perspective. So anyway, great therapist, regular guy question.
Yeah, that was a good one. Definitely interesting to be able to see something that we're on such different experiences of, to be able to do that. But another way to find a good therapist is go to therelationshiphouse.org, because I think we only have really great therapists at our practice. And if we don't have something that you're looking for, I always love helping people kind of look for other people in the area and send them to the right websites if they're not local as well. So don't hesitate to reach out. But this was fun. Again, I love being able to go down memory lane with camp stuff.
That's where it started.
Yeah.
That's where it all started.
Yeah. It's cool to think about it that way, for sure. And still learn new things about each other. Learned how similar our experiences at camp were. You said what was 20 something years
ago, I think, was our
when we were done being
24 years ago would have been our last summer together at camp.
And still we're learning something new about what it was like to be campers with each other. And so that was really cool. I appreciate that.
Awesome. Well, if you've got any camp stories, if you want to talk about camp, if you have any thoughts about camp, or even something similar to camp, right? Because I don't think not everybody experiences sleepaway camp like we got the opportunity to. Instagram, Man Up Together Podcast, questions at Man Up Together Podcast, comment on YouTube. Let us know if you have any thoughts, or again, if you put icy hot somewhere it shouldn't be, tell us.
We're so sorry.
I really want to know where it went and how it happened, and I kind of want to know the details.
Gosh.
Well, with that,
we'll see you next week when we continue to man up together.
The Man Up Together podcast was produced and edited by Alex Peskin and Bobby Jacobs. Special thank you to our wives, family, friends, and coworkers who have supported us in so many ways throughout this process. You can find us on Instagram at Man Up Together Podcast, and you can email us at questions@manuptogetherpodcast.com. If you are interested in joining us on this journey, please like, subscribe, and share this with someone you care about. Thank you for listening. See you next week.